Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Not D&D, brought to you by EN Live, part of EN World. I'm your host, Jessica, and this week there may be a familiar face for some of you if you watch EN World Live, Roe Caulfield. So,
Thank you for having me.
No, anytime. Happy to have you back. So people may recognize you from the Star-Crossed Seaway Level Up Advanced 5th Edition. So if they're familiar with the channel, they may be used to that. But you're not being a pirate today. Today you're going to talk to us about the game you're working on, Play Ball, due to come out next year. But before I dig into that, I'm going to ask you some questions about you, if that's okay. So who are you in tabletop RPG? Like, what was your first role-playing game that you remember playing?
So I played like a few different sessions of D&D early on in my life when I was a kid, but I didn't really play anything significant. The first like real campaign in a tabletop RPG I was ever really like a part of was Pathfinder first edition game when I went to college. And then we played, we never really played a true campaign. We played like, honestly, a couple times a week because we didn't want to do college stuff. But we would literally just start new campaigns. The DM, I guess, was never satisfied with the story or how I guess the first session went. We did a couple Star Wars ones as well. Those were probably the most fun, and I wasn't like a big Star Wars person, but they were just kind of the most fun games that we played then. But Pathfinder was big for me.
Yeah, so that's quite like a crunchy kind of heavy system. Do you like start exploring some other kind of indie games and games like that, or?
Yeah, I have so many tabletop games that are just sitting on my shelf that I haven't really gotten to like play all that much. A lot of them are indie games made by 1, 2, 3 people teams, and they're all so cool. One of my biggest things that I look for in games is style, just like art style. Like I do it for video games too. Like I just really love these like unique, almost independent styles. And I think indie games have like the benefit of going bigger and more stylish in a way that maybe a lot of people won't like just because they don't know who's going to like it. The way that D&D has released 6 different editions and has kind of locked themselves into a box art-wise, it's like indie games get to experiment a little bit more, I feel.
Yeah, a little bit more freedom and risk you can take with it. Yeah, because there's not like expectations. That's true. I like it. So somebody who plays a lot of tabletop RPGs, awesome. We could talk about that, but I want to talk a little bit more about the games you create. So when did you start creating and writing games?
So I have been creating games in one form or another probably since high school. But my first like significant work where it was like, hey, I'm actually a writer on a D&D project or something like that. Probably within the last 5 years, I kind of went from gamer to designer. I've gotten to work on a couple of really cool games. One of which is Queers by Son of Oak, the people who did City of Mist. Their Kickstarter for that went live a couple of years ago now. I think it's like 1.5 years, 2 years. But before that, they were like, hey, I literally sent a tweet out like, hey, I would love to write for City of Mist. And they were like, hey, why don't you DM us? And I'm like, cool.
Yeah, I'll do that.
So I did. And then they were like, hey, we'd really love for you to write an adventure for us for this new game that we're doing. and I got to, one of my adventures is in their like adventure anthology that is going to come out when the game is like fully fulfilled from Kickstarter and everything. I think the game might be available, like the base game, in like PDF form already. I honestly have been so busy I can't recall, but I know the adventure anthology will come at some point. And they were super great, and this was like my, not my big break, but it was the first real instance of, I'm not just working on projects with people I know in the community, writing like a quick little adventure or scenario. This was like my first real opportunity to do something like, this is real. This is something I can do long term as a career if I really put the effort in. And this is the proof of that.
Yeah.
Like I didn't get the opportunity because I knew the people who worked and created City of Mist and everything. I got it really based on merit, and the people over there were so encouraging and awesome in the whole process of it. They even, the article came out back in September, but they were like, hey, we really loved your adventure. Please be in this Polygon article with us, which was like a tabletop, like indie, like upcoming indie TTRPGs. And I was like, oh my God, that's incredible. Absolutely. I'll do that. So they've done a lot for me as a writer. And it kind of gave me the confidence I needed to be like, I can do this.
Yeah. So. That's awesome. I think the industry is very much like as well. It's getting that first kind of break, getting that first kind of job, because then you've got something else you can point to for other things. You're like, I'm a writer, I did this, and people kind of go, oh, cool, yeah, you can come over and do this now. I think getting your foot in the door, doing that first thing is like kind of the first difficult thing. So that's awesome that's all kind of happening and going. So let's talk a little bit about the game we're here to talk about and plug. We're here to talk about Play Ball. So what is your elevator pitch? How would you describe this to people?
Play Ball is, it's awesome. I love it so much. I love everything about it. That aside, from an unbiased point of view, it's a sports anime TTRPG for people who either like sports, like anime, or like TTRPGs. One, two, or all three, any combination of it. It's a game that's all about really just building relationships and creating these really stellar moments and telling stories with your friends. It's not a huge game. It's got its own like little quirks and everything, but it's something you can play with your friends. And if you're a sports anime fan like I am, or just general slice of life anime, and you like TTRPGs or want to get into TTRPGs, I feel like it's a great entry point if you're into those things and we're looking to get into TTRPGs, or even if you don't care about sports or anime or sports anime, but like telling stories with your friends. I feel like this game's a really great medium to do that. So
that does sound awesome. Yeah. So I'm not like a huge anime fan, but the little I do know is that baseball is a really big thing in anime. Like most big animes have like a baseball episode. So is this kind of like that one shot baseball episode in there? Is it like a one shot or campaign, or?
You can do it however you want, I would say. You can honestly, if you want to just inject a baseball episode into any other tabletop campaign that you have, you can pull the mechanics from this and just go ahead and do that. But I made it, I'm a big fan of anime. I have anime tattoos. I'm literally wearing an anime shirt right now. I have 1,000 Funko Pops behind me. It's a nightmare. But Play Ball can kind of be played however you want, as like a mini campaign, or something more long term. There's a couple of really great anime that inspired it. Some of my favorites. I mean, baseball's huge in Japan, which is why so many anime end up having baseball episodes. So it's really like the place where baseball is the second biggest thing in the world, other than here. Like baseball, it really kind of, I felt like it was a good medium for this type of game. And you don't even have to like baseball to play it, but you can play a whole campaign and play through these baseball games and still really hone in on the relationships with the people around you in the world around you. It's very slice of life in the sense that it's not just about what's on the field and in the game. It's, you know, it's about how you're going through your life, because it kind of focuses on, like, because most sports anime are high school level. So in a, not to compare it to Kids on Bikes because it's vastly different, but it's like you're sort of taking on that role of, you know, a high schooler who's either at the very end of high school, very beginning of high school, wherever you fall in there. You know, there's a lot of challenges in life at that time that you sometimes use sports to get away from, or use sports to help figure out solutions creatively in other aspects of your life. That's what happened for me, because I played so many sports growing up. So I was really able to inject a lot of that off-field stuff, like, where are you going to college? What are you doing for the rest of your life? The relationships you're in, like, are you and your significant other going to stay together after high school? Or are you going to different colleges on opposite sides of the world? Like, there's so many other aspects that people can inject into this. And I tried to leave it pretty open to give you the tools to do that. So it's kind of play as you want, I guess. Whatever you feel comfortable with.
That's definitely, I'm really glad you brought that up, because that's what appealed to me when we were talking about it and asking to invite you on. At its core, it's about people and their relationships, and like you say, this is the backdrop for the story. But it doesn't matter if you don't know anything about baseball or anime, you can sit down and play this role-playing game, because it's at its core about people. Let's dig into it a little bit. Let's talk about the characters. The sort of people you're playing, and mechanically how you create your characters. So you've given a great kind of picture there about, you know, social statistics and sports statistics. Could you just talk us through how it all works?
Yeah, so I kept it simple. You have 4 stats. You have X amount of points to put into those stats, and then whichever character trope, which is largely based on your position in, like, in baseball, or like are you the superstar ace pitcher who everyone is afraid of, like the hot shot, like #1 player to look out for in the big tournament this fall, like in the country, or are you some young upstart who's trying to find their way? Those give you different bonuses to any of those 4 stats. The sport ones, they're mainly used, you know, for the game, for the baseball and everything. And the social ones, they're a little bit different. You have sort of the charisma-based sort of style, where you're kind of leaning heavily on who you are as a person and your natural energy and all your vibes and everything to accomplish whatever goal it is. It's not like a super check-based game, but it's like, hey, sure, you're flirting with the girl of your dreams. Go ahead and make a style check or something. The primary dice in play ball, just because I really like it, is the D12.
Okay.
So, but it kind of uses the full array of dice as much as it can. But
cool.
Yeah, the stats are kind of their tools to tell the story that you want, and you can pick whichever stat feels right for that situation.
Okay, cool. And I can see you've also got like primary abilities and secondary abilities and like relationship elements on there. So how do you go about creating them if you're gonna like build your character for the game?
So the primary and secondary abilities come with your the trope that you choose.
Okay.
So those ones are mainly on field. I'll probably inject some off field abilities later on. But the relationship elements are the ones that really sort of carry the story outside of the game of baseball. But for the primary abilities, you have one that you can use once per game, and it's like that big, like power up type, like super move that you see. It's like you pull some trick out of your hat, do something incredible, and it's like, hey, you're the main character. That's why you can do this.
Cool.
Yeah, and the secondary ones, they're kind of, hey, you can use these up to 3 times per game, and they're like, yeah, you're still a main character, but this is you kind of, you're not using your big one shot right now. You're doing what you can in the meantime, and then you're going to use the big one when you need it the most. And then the relationship elements, and it's in the core book, just some breakdowns of common relationships that you can build with NPCs or other players. There's some that are, baseball based. The relationship between player and coach is a huge one. Sometimes the relationship between two players, like a veteran player who's been there for a couple of years, and then someone fresh and new, the mentor-mentee type relationship. Pitchers and catchers in baseball have a very special relationship in forming a battery, as it's called. And then, you have sibling relationships, you have friends, you have your relationships with your teachers and all this. So it really helps flesh out your character in the ways that are most important. And it helps you and the umpire, the narrator, tell the story that is most, like, go through your story arc. What is your whole thing about? Like, you have maybe a fractured relationship, former best friend turned rival who plays for like the crosstown team, and you have these off-field issues because maybe they left without saying goodbye and whatever. So it really kind of, it's all about who your character is, what story you want to tell, what you want their life to be about, and what kind of experience you want from the game itself.
That all sounds really great. So if we're sitting down to play a game, the umpire, which is what you call the narrator, the game master, nice. How do they structure a session? So if we're sitting down to play, how do we structure a session of this game?
So I imagine your session can go anywhere between 2 and 4 hours. It depends. So the game itself has 2 styles of play, one with plenty of crunch that accounts for all the different variables that can come up in a game of baseball. There's a lot of things that can happen.
Cool.
And then there's another one that focuses mainly on the narrative events. It streamlines gameplay. You're just using a D20. There's no other dice involved. And it kind of breaks games down to a much quicker, shorter thing if you're more focused on the creative story elements of it all. And depending on which mode you're playing, you structure a session. Are you playing a game in that session? Because that game will take up most of your time, because it does take a little while if you're using the crunchy system. Because I have it set, you can go through all 9 innings. There's all the different variables, everything like that. And then the other one, it's much shorter. You just do the game in 3 sort of sections, beginning, middle, and end.
I love that. So you have something, if people are really big fans of baseball and really want to get into it, there's something there. But if somebody's like, I don't really know that much about baseball, you're like, that's fine. Take this version. That's awesome. I love that you considered that. Yeah,
I'm a massive baseball fan, but I also understand that baseball is not as popular in the world, let alone even here in America, as maybe it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. So I really wanted to think about the player who my fiance wasn't super into baseball or anything before we met. And I've just kind of injected that into their life, so they care now.
They have
they hate
to now, yeah.
They have to, and they hate it because when the team loses, they're just as upset as I am. It's great. Truly a win for me. But I wanted to think about that kind of person who maybe someone they love really loves baseball, and they want to play this tabletop game, which is a thing that maybe they have in common, TTRPGs. And they, it's like, hey, what's the easiest way to do this? And in the book, we have like the introductory one shot, which kind of helps you test out both styles of play. It's at least encouraged, so you can kind of see where you and your table want to go. Whatever is the best method for telling your stories. So structuring a session, you figure out, what's going on socially. Are there big midterms or finals or anything like that? Did someone just have like a big situation within their family? Like, is something going on in their personal life? Do we want to focus on that? Is it like spring break and like, oh, everyone's got a week off? It's like, if you're focusing more on those, maybe you don't play a game in this session. Maybe this session is all role play for 2-3 hours. And then maybe in the next one, it's like, okay, we're back at it. We had practice. We've got our next game. We're in the final tournament or whatever. Let's go for it. And then you kind of play a couple more games. So it depends on what's going on and what your players are most excited about. If they're really excited to find out who fails their midterms or something like that, and all the drama that comes with that, or if there's like prom or something in high school, like the big end of year prom, maybe it's the week of the big game, and in very like high school musical fashion, you have to decide where you want to be at this particular moment, or something silly like that. There's a lot of options.
So when you're structuring a campaign, it would be good to like tell me if I'm on the right page here. So you'll be structuring it like you're playing a load of different baseball games, maybe like you're in a tournament, and in between the games you have like the slice of life high school kind of moments as well, and you can extend and make them bigger as much as you want during gameplay. Is that sort of a campaign vibe? Or
it's kind of like each session is an episode, because it is like a sports anime thing, and I think I used that exact terminology in the book. I might not have. I definitely refer to sessions as episodes, at least like in my own head. But a gameplay session is an episode of this show that you and your friends are a part of. You're the main characters of a sports anime. That's what this game is all about. Maybe that should have been my elevator pitch. But
that's good.
You're the main characters of the show, but you have like lives. Like, do you want to focus mostly on baseball? Is that what your gameplay group's about? Like, where most sessions are baseball with a little bit of that like narrative thrown in there? Like, some anime are structured like that. They're like all focused on the sport and the players in the sport and everything they're doing around that sport. Like Kuroko's basketball. And then, maybe you get something else where it's like, there's a basketball anime I really like called Ahiru no Sora, and that one involves a lot of off court stuff where it's like, hey, we're trying to build up this program and everything. We don't want to lose our basketball program or something. So that focuses on a lot of stuff going on off the court just as much as it does on court. So, you structure it like an episode, especially based around whatever sort of pacing that you and your group are looking for. Like, maybe every other session you want to play a baseball game. Maybe you're playing like 2 or 3 big games in a 12-session season, where you then like take a break, you go on your summer break, whatever, and then come back 2-3 weeks later, ready for the next year or the next season campaign with new characters, whatever you're feeling. So yeah, sort of just episodic, I guess.
Yeah, like you say, just like an anime that it's inspired by. That sounds really great. So we talked a little bit about the mechanics. You say so we're using the full kind of set of dice like you would in D&D. So you've got your D20 and going all the way through. What do you use the kind of different dice for? Like, and like you said, there's 2 modes. So I guess I'm speaking to the more kind of crunchy version of it at the moment. So where the game is now, like, how do we use all the different dice? Like mechanically, kind of what's going on with that crunchy version?
So in the crunchy version, the D12, the D10, and the D4 get a lot of work. The D4 gets used for a couple different things. The D20 gets used for a couple different things. Mainly, so in a game of baseball, there's so many different things that can happen. There's 9 different positions on the field. So you have to sort of accommodate the position. Like when you, like the hitter and the pitcher are facing each other, basically in a head-to-head battle, like who's gonna win? Are you gonna put the ball in play? Are you gonna get struck out? Who knows? So you kind of roll a D12 there, decide who wins. You add whatever stat or you use whatever ability. And then once the ball's in play, or once you get a hit, you determine if it's in play, if it's a foul ball, or if that battle actually just resulted in a walk where you just automatically get on base with no risk factor. And then if you put it in play, there's the different positions, the 9 different positions, and then there's, the wall all the way in the outfield. You roll a D10 there, figure out where it's going on the field, to who it's being hit to. Are you hitting it like super far? Is it going all the way to the wall? Then you roll another D10, but it's broken into 4 choices. So 1 through 3 is a ground ball. Some balls just hit on the ground. 4 through 6 is like a line drive. So it's being hit right at someone. Then there's the fly ball. And then if you roll a 10, so if you kind of roll 2 10s in a row, it's so if you roll a 10, hit it to the outfield wall, and then roll another 10 on how hard the ball is hit or the type of hit, that's a home run, basically. So I was able to factor in that. I was able to factor in the different types of hits, which lead to the different types of plays and how outs are made and everything. And then the D20 is used for some other challenge roles, like throwing people out when they're trying to steal or something like that. So I kind of had to break down what happens in a baseball game, what could happen in a baseball game, and then put a dice and a number
mechanic
to that. Fortunately, math is a huge thing in baseball, so that was actually relatively easy.
So you're used to it. You're like, sure, I do this all the time.
So it worked out. It was really cool. It was a lot of fun to sort of work out. I worked it out in literally 2 days. The core mechanics of this game were finished in less than
an intense
hours.
2 days, was it?
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it, like I don't know that much about baseball. Like I know all the obvious, like the big things, like you hit a home run, you got to run around the, I know the obvious stuff. But I'm thinking this could be like a good way to learn more about baseball, like via this role-playing game, because it sounds like everything's kind of in there, all the possible outcomes. So for me, as like someone that doesn't know much about them, like I could sit and play a game with this because I know TTRPGs, but if I'd come out of this having a stronger knowledge of the game than when I went in, I think, which is awesome to hear. But if someone like you say, if somebody is like not as focused on the baseball side of it, and they're like, I love my animes, I want to tell the story, I want this angsty teen drama with the backdrop of baseball, which who doesn't love the sound of that? What's the more, you mentioned the pared down version, so that's just got kind of 3 phases in it. So what's that like in terms mechanically? So that's a lot less crunch as you described it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very much, hey, we're here to tell a story and have a good time, which, you know, you can do in the sort of crunchier style, but this one is like, we don't really care as much about the intricacies of the game. We're just looking for cool, epic moments, like cutting from like one part of the game to the next part. So it breaks the game down to like the first 3 of the 9 innings is section 1. Then you have the middle 3, section 2, and then the final 3, section 3. The umpire kind of you know, dictates what is happening. So you're, as the umpire in this style of play, taking a bit more of a hand in what is happening for your players. You're still having them roll dice. You have them roll a d20 and add one of their stats and, you know, meet a challenge rating or something like that. So you kind of say, okay, this is the team they're playing. These are the cool moments I'm going to give them, and I'm going to give them the sort of room to describe exactly how this stuff is happening. Like they're big moments, the big super play that they made, the sort of highlight reel type you know, hit or play you made out on the field to get like a great out or something like that. And I put examples on how these interactions would go in the core book. For both styles of play, so that people get an idea like, okay, so this is how I do this. This is what this should look like, but it's just kind of a guideline if you don't know how you want it to look. It gives players more creativity options, and the umpire kind of is setting them up for success, while kind of giving them the platform to succeed or fail. I mean, if they roll badly on the dice, they'll fail, and the umpire can go with that. Like, hey, you guys played really badly today and lost, and it was heartbreaking. Now you're out of the tournament. And because the dice don't lie, you know, and it's like, how do you overcome that? So it can create a lot of really cool, unique story opportunities. But the game is made to be easy to win, because I want the players to win and have that big celebratory moment. And you know, if they're like, we want to lose, we want to be a terrible team with no special skills or anything like that. If they want to do that, they sure can. I mean, umpires can give other teams special abilities. There are going to be more abilities later on that get kind of added in. So it's going to be very interesting to see sort of how people play and all the stuff I'm doing, you know, post launch of the game to kind of add on to play ball. It's very exciting.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned you could have somebody that's bad at playing baseball in there, because my instant character idea was like, maybe I come in as this British exchange student that knows nothing about baseball and is like, I'll just join a team to meet people and like have fun, and has no idea what they're doing. So that could be quite funny. But they're like, we need another player to make it for the tournament, so we'll take this random person, sure. So I think there could be some great role-play moments with that there. Speaking about the launch of the game, so you're planning to launch it next year in 2023. If people are interested in learning more or following the game, where's the best way for people to do that?
So we do have an itch.io page. You can follow the game on there to find out when it comes out. We're kind of in the final stages of layout and everything. Sarah, the wonderful DM from Starcross Seaways, is doing the layout on the book, which is amazing. So exciting.
And this artwork, the artwork is gorgeous. Who's doing the artwork?
My fiance did all of the art. The cover art, all the internal art. These characters here are our pre-gen characters from the one shot. So there's art of them. There's more art of them in the book itself. My fiance, you can follow them on Twitter. It's at Bloody Lovely. It's BLOODILOVELI. So talented. Love of my life. It did all of this art, did the icons that you'll see for all the different character tropes, did the sort of like, hey, these are the 3 categories of tropes you can choose from, like sort of generic characters, the 2 big full art, like just art scenes, the cover, that font on the cover, that was all by hand, like custom font and everything.
Wow.
So incredibly, unbelievably talented. That whole backdrop, that was just hand painted or like hand drawn, which so incredibly talented.
It's gonna be a pretty book then.
Yeah, it's very stylish. Very, very stylish. My friend Kate McClendon did the character sheet at Wow Kate, CAIT on Twitter. Did the character sheet for me, has done some other art for some of my podcasts for me as well. I know so many great artists. It's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, it's a great place to be in, especially for tabletop RPGs. Yeah.
I forgot what the original question was.
So did I, because we're having fun talking about the art. But I think it was where is the game right now? So you're currently working on it, planning to bring it out next year.
Yes.
What stage are we at? So it's in layout at the moment.
Yeah. So
how are you planning on launching it?
So we tried to kickstart it. And by we, I mean me, and it failed. We didn't hit our Kickstarter goal. It was a very difficult time in my life. I honestly almost gave up on the game altogether. The game was done, but like the core of it was done. So I've had to fund the rest of it just kind of out of pocket as I could. I did all of the internal work, the actual writing of the game and designing the mechanics, a lot of the editing and everything as well. So it took a while. We're hoping for a January or February launch in 2023.
Okay. Pretty early then. Awesome.
Yeah. Anytime there's an update, I tweet about it. So you can just follow me on Twitter at Call Me Caulfield. CALMECAULFIELD for old time's sake, because I used to spell it out every week on Starcross Seaways. And I'll tweet about it anytime there's like a big update, or like, hey, we're close, we're really close. I'll share art there sometimes as well. The game will be available to buy just as a PDF at launch on itch. And then, hopefully I'll move to other platforms after that. But mainly, if you want to check out some gameplay, there are some one-shots that we did during the build-up to, like, during the Kickstarter and everything.
Okay, cool.
That I got to play with some of the most incredible people. That's on my YouTube.
I'll put a link in the show notes there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that one is like our number one, like the number one shot that we did. We had a great audience the night of that. I think it really exemplified just the fun that you can have playing the game.
Cool. So there is some actual play stuff people think at,
Yeah, there's 3 or 4 one-shots that are all very different. I ran all of them during the Kickstarter, and they all were really the one in particular, the Generation of Miracles, which is a call to Kuroko's basketball one shot. That one was really, really great. The Brandy Rose, Drac O'Neeks, and KP, known on Twitter as KP11 Studios. All 3 of them were in it. I love all 3 of those human beings so very much. They all did such an incredible job. They had such great chemistry at the table. That one shot is so much fun. It is by far like one of my favorite tabletop RPG sessions I've ever played, and I kind of just got to sit back and watch them all do their thing.
Amazing.
So that was really cool. I think that one exemplifies the power of the game the best.
Excellent. We'll put the link in the show notes if you're listening to the podcast, so you can click through and have a watch of those to check out how the game actually plays. So yeah, fab. So we're coming up near to the end of the time. So I was going to ask, is there anything else you want to share about the game, or any questions I forgot to ask you about the game, about Playball?
I just really hope people give it a chance. It's my first real like independent project. It's the thing that I worked on that, you know, was kind of for me. It actually came about because I was going to be doing like a small little actual play on Twitch with a couple of people. It was going to be a sports anime thing, and we couldn't find a system that really fit what we wanted to do. So I was just like, hey, I'll just like make some mechanics for this, and we'll just kind of use those pretty loosely. And then in 2 days, I was like, hey, so I went a little overboard and just kind of made a whole tabletop game. I really could not like put anything down. I couldn't put it down when I was making it. I was so excited, so passionate, because these are 3 like huge pieces of my life all kind of coming together. Because I played sports growing up. I love sports so very much. I tweet about it way too much. It's kind of dominated my Twitter profile over the last year instead of the tabletop games. That's my bad. Anime was really good, really important for me growing up. I learned a lot of things from anime that I maybe wasn't getting from positive role models in my life, or from a lack of positive role models in my life growing up. And then tabletop games, they're such an important part of my life as an adult. It's kind of all these different phases of my life coming together into this one tabletop game, and then getting to share that with people. Truly the greatest thing in the world. But yeah, I think people will have a lot of fun with it if they make it their own. I'm going to be releasing more things, like just sort of story arc kind of adventure module type things after the game comes out.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's very exciting. It's a game made by a trans woman. It's an indie TTRPG that had a very small team that worked on it, no more than 4 or 5 people, and I think it's going to be worth having in your files on your computer.
Well, I certainly think so too, which is why I wanted to invite you on the show to talk about it and share it with other people. So please do check it out on next year on Itch. Links in the show notes or on the screen if you're watching. And just a reminder that in December, until December 19th on EN World, we are actually taking nominations for the tabletop RPG you're most excited about launching in 2023. So if this piques your interest, you can also vote for it on EN World as well. But speaking of tabletop RPGs, I'm going to now come to the part of the show where I ask the last question, which is, do you have any indie tabletop RPGs you'd recommend? And the rule is they can't be ones you've worked on, and it can't be D&D. So do you have any for us?
There is one that I do want to point out, and I'll kind of stick in the same sort of sports type vein. There's the Worldwide Wrestling RPG. It's a pro wrestling TTRPG.
Okay.
It's so awesome. I love it. It's so much fun. It was a big inspiration for Play Ball and how I kind of structured the book and went to try and structure the sessions and everything. But it's so much fun. I love professional wrestling. It's another thing that I almost did as a career for a while.
Wow.
So the Worldwide Wrestling RPG definitely will be my indie recommendation of the day.
I love it, and that fits perfectly with the sports anime tabletop RPG we were talking about as well. What a perfect blend. Okay, well, Ro, all that's left for me to say is thank you so much for coming back onto the EM Publishing site to talk about your game and share that with us, and wish you all the best for next year when you launch. Really excited to see it.
Yeah, I'll be here anytime. I love coming on here. You and Ian Publishing are great. Starcross Seaways is so close to my heart. Best tabletop campaign I've ever played. So I love that show. If you haven't seen it, you should definitely go check it out if you're listening to this or watching this or whatever, because it was awesome. It was the most fun I've ever had. So, you know, shout out to Ian. You guys rule.
Well, thank you very much. I think what a better way to end the show on that note. All right, thanks very much, and thanks you very much for listening, everyone else.